Joe Gibbs Racing is suing its former competition director, Chris Gabehart.
One of NASCAR's most powerful teams just took their former employee to federal court. Joe Gibbs Racing is suing Chris Gabehart, their ex-competition director, for $8 million. And the allegations in this lawsuit read like a spy thriller. This isn't just drama. This is about stolen secrets, power struggles, and betrayal at the highest level of stock car racing. Chris Gabehart spent 13 years building his career at Joe Gibbs Racing. He started as an engineer back in 2012 and climbed all the way to the top. For years, he was the crew chief for Denny Hamlin, one of the biggest names in NASCAR. That partnership delivered 22 Cup Series wins from 2019 to 2024, including 2 Daytona 500 victories and multiple championship final appearances. By 2025, Gabehart got promoted to Director of Competition, overseeing everything that makes JGR's cars go fast. His salary, $1 million a year before bonuses. JGR had their best statistical season in 6 years under his leadership. Hamlin won 6 races, Christopher Bell won 4, and Chase Briscoe grabbed 3 wins in his first season with the team. 3 cars finished top 5 in points. Everything looked perfect. Then it all fell apart. According to the lawsuit filed Thursday, February 19th, 2026 in federal court in North Carolina, Gabehart wanted more. He wasn't satisfied being competition director. He wanted total control over every racing decision at JGR, complete authority, no questions asked. On November 6th, 2025, just 4 days after the championship race at Phoenix, Gabehart sat down with Coach Joe Gibbs himself and made his demands. Gibbs listened. Then Gibbs said no. That meeting changed everything. Gibbs asked Gabehart directly whether he wanted to stay at JGR or leave. Gabehart chose to leave. He stopped working on November 10th. The team took his laptop, standard procedure, and started working on a separation agreement. The agreement would have let Gabehart work for another NASCAR team. The only rules were simple. Don't try recruiting JGR employees. Return all equipment and information. Fair enough, right? But JGR started noticing things. Gabehart's lawyers kept making edits to the paperwork that raised eyebrows. Then the team learned Gabehart had been meeting privately with Jeff Dickerson, co-owner of Spire Motorsports. They were discussing a job offer, chief motorsports officer at Spire. JGR went back to that laptop. What they found shocked them. Gabehart had connected his personal Google Drive to his work computer. Inside that Google Drive sat a folder. The folder was titled Spire. Inside that folder was another one called Past Setups. When confronted, Gabehart claimed the folder just stored personal notes and records. JGR didn't believe him. They brought in a forensic examiner, someone both sides agreed on, to dig deeper. The examiner confirmed JGR's fears. That Spire folder contained 20 of JGR's race car setup files. Those documents tell a team exactly how to configure a car for a race. That information alone is worth millions to any competitor. But it got worse. The lawsuit alleges Gabehart used his personal cell phone to photograph his laptop screen. At least 20 photos. Why use a phone to take pictures of your own laptop? According to JGR, because he was trying to hide what he was doing. Using his phone instead of downloading files directly made it harder to detect. Those photos allegedly contain some of JGR's most valuable secrets. Complete performance breakdowns for every driver and crew member throughout the entire 2025 season. Full payroll records showing every salary, contract length, bonus structure, and payment plans. A calculator JGR uses to determine compensation for key positions, driver pay information for 2025 and 2026, revenue details from sponsors and partners for 2024, 2025, and 2026, pit crew performance data, detailed tire analytics showing how different tire choices affected race results. Think about what that means. A competing team with all that information would know exactly what JGR pays their people, how their cars are set up, how drivers and crews perform, and how much money the team makes from sponsors. That's a roadmap to stealing talent and copying strategies. The timeline JGR laid out makes this look devastating for Gabehart. According to the lawsuit, he first accessed the confidential information on November 7th, just one day after Gibbs told him no. He kept going back to that Spire folder repeatedly. November 12th, 13th, 15th, 23rd, 25th, 26th, 27th, and December 2nd. That last date stands out. December 2nd was the exact same day Gabehart sat down for a meeting with Spire co-owner Jeff Dickerson. In early February 2026, the forensic examiner officially deleted JGR's files from Gabehart's personal drive. 2 days later, Joe Gibbs Racing fired Gabehart for cause. By that point, Gabehart had already taken the chief motorsports officer job at Spire, officially joining the organization earlier that month. Here's what makes this interesting. Spire Motorsports itself is not named as a defendant. JGR is going after Gabehart personally. The team isn't asking the court to stop Gabehart from working at Spire. They're not trying to block him from doing his new job. What they want is money, more than $8 million in damages. They want a jury trial, compensatory damages, interest, and they want Gabehart to cover their attorney fees. Why $8 million? That number is significant. During the recent 23XI antitrust trial, testimony revealed that 23XI Racing pays Joe Gibbs Racing $8 million every year for their technical alliance. So JGR is essentially saying, if you're going to steal all our data and bring it to another team, we'll charge you what we charge for a legitimate partnership. As of now, neither Gabehart nor his legal team has responded to the lawsuit. Spire Motorsports hasn't made any public statement either. Both sides have stayed silent. This raises massive questions. Does Spire still want Gabehart after all this? They're backed by TWG Global with billions in their portfolio. They could potentially pay a settlement to make this go away if they really want him. But do they? Gabehart earned his reputation as one of the best engineering minds in modern NASCAR. He's 44 years old, right in his prime. For a team like Spire that's still ascending, still trying to establish themselves as contenders, someone like Gabehart could make a huge difference. But taking photos of your work laptop with your phone, having a folder labeled Spire on your JGR computer, that's either incredibly careless or incredibly arrogant. JGR had to replace Gabehart with a council of people to do the job he did alone. That shows how valuable he was. But JGR also has deep resources, talented engineers everywhere, and strong ties to Toyota. They'll survive without him. The bigger question is whether this derails Gabehart's career. In NASCAR, reputation matters. Trust matters. Teams invest millions developing proprietary information. When someone walks out the door and allegedly takes that information to a rival, it strikes at the core of how the sport operates. JGR spent over a decade building trust with Gabehart. They paid him $1 million a year. They gave him one of the most important roles on the team. And according to this lawsuit, the moment Joe Gibbs said no to giving him even more power, Gabehart started taking their secrets. This story goes beyond racing. It's about business, loyalty, and what happens when ambition collides with ethics. NASCAR is a cutthroat world. Drivers get fought over, engineers get poached, but there are lines you don't cross. Taking setup files, payroll data, sponsor revenue information that crosses every line. We'll see how this plays out. Will there be a settlement? Will this go to trial? Will Denny Hamlin end up testifying in court again after just finishing the 2311 antitrust case? Will Spire stand by Gabehart or cut him loose? One thing's certain, this lawsuit just became one of the biggest stories of the 2026 NASCAR season, and it's only February. So, what do you think? Did Gabehart cross the line or is JGR overreacting? Should Spire stick with him or walk away? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you made it this far, you're clearly invested in this story. So hit that like button, smash subscribe, and turn on notifications because this case is going to develop fast and you don't want to miss the updates. Until next time, have a good one.